Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising, March was a really hectic month for us all, and especially for you with that Virgo eclipse that we had. But on the bright side, April brings extremely positive, clarifying energies that bring bliss into your life. And so in this video specifically, I want to give you your detailed 2025 April horoscope so that you can own, align, and embody these positive energies to your benefit. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Isabelle, your spiritual rebel friend, and today we are talking about your sign's horoscope for April of 2025. I say your sign because I heard from last month, I listened, guys, you really did appreciate the longer horoscopes, but I had to find a way to make this a little more efficient. In today's video specifically, I am going to cover the major themes for Pisces in April, transits in April divided by theme, and how they will affect Pisces, how the new moon in Libra will affect Pisces, how the new moon in Taurus will affect Pisces, and practical tips for Pisces to work with this energy in April. So whether Pisces is your sun, your moon, your rising, or maybe something else, if you're someone who wants to not only take in the information of astrology, but also know how to apply it to your life, watch through to the end of this video where I'm going to share some of my top tips for Pisces specifically to work with this energy that is presenting itself to you in the month of April. And before we dive into your horoscope today, be sure to book a reading in the link in the description below, where in 1 hour we can dive deep into any and everything you need to know about the upcoming month of April, how it affects your sign and your entire chart. So not just your sun, your moon, your rising, and so much more, as well as other things that may be happening in your chart that you can utilize to your benefit to gain the things you want in life. So not only is this astrology, it's also your personology, so your Enneagram, your Myers-Briggs, and so much more. We can cover it all. Sky's the limit. This is for anyone interested in astrology, self-development, and manifestation. Learn more about readings down below. I also now offer an astrology coaching program where for just $100 a month, you get personalized monthly guidance live on Zoom call. And so if that sounds interesting to you, check out more information about my astrology coaching membership down below, and also check out any of my other offerings that I have, including my astrology bundle where you can learn how to work through different energies in your chart practically for self-care and growth. And you can check out my Master Astrologer course where I teach you how to become your own astrologer and deeply but simply understand the stars. In short, check out all the links in the description below. Now let's dive into your horoscope. Overall, regardless of your sign, April is a month that really does highlight our emotional needs and desire to grow, and how growing our emotional awareness affects us in many means. This is because there's a lot of Cancer and Pisces energy present in many different forms of transits, trines, and more. This really does emphasize that overall, throughout the month of April, we really are finding that to act in alignment with our emotions becomes easier. And this also works really well in alignment with our highest path of growth that is present right now, where we are all developing our empathy, compassion, and spirituality in some way or in some area of our life. Not only is there a lot of water energy present through the archetype of Cancer and Pisces that heightens the themes of emotional attunement in the month of April, but there's also some Aries and Leo energy present that has been long awaited in many ways. And this can bring a lot of motion forward in conversations and in movement we've been wanting to do in matters related to our passion, as passion and desire are both themes present within any fire sign and in Aries and Leo specifically. This is because Mars will be entering Leo, which I'll touch on more later, but also because Mars is going to re-enter Aries. And so overall, there's this theme of fire energy present in the month of April that gives us this almost fire back in our veins, motivation coming back, and working through communication and maybe issues that were present in the past. As both these planets were retrograde at some point, what this really symbolizes, having this Aries and Leo energy present in the month of April, highlights this theme almost of moving forward not only in desire, but communicating previous issues, moving forward on previous issues, and bringing maintenance to maybe conversations or actions related to our passion, our desire, and our authenticity. And also, simply put, I would add that it seems like love is in the air this month, simply because we will have a full moon and a new moon, per usual, but in the signs of Libra and Taurus, both of which are ruled by Venus. And Venus also does a lot of movement this month. So personally, I would describe that in the month of April, a major theme is this idea of love being in the air because of both full and new moons being in the signs ruled by Venus. This brings an emphasized Venusian, if that's how you pronounce it, energy that has us assessing maybe even our love life, our love for life, and focusing on doing things that truly bring us value. And that works very hand in hand with the Aries Leo energy we have present as well, because this is about doing things that are in alignment with our heart. And this works in alignment with the Cancer Pisces energy present that is all about following our purest positive energy. So how exactly will these major themes play out for you specifically, Pisces Sun and Pisces Rising? I'm really seeing that this month of April of 2025 has a strong focus on you. You are very much in the spotlight in the month of April, as opposed to in March, where maybe you felt there was a bit more stress. Now you get to soften into your sense of self and thrive in a sense of pleasure in the process of it all, meaning that you can really feel this sense in April that you're just you. You are embracing you, you're emotionally fulfilled by you, you're owning your sense of self, and at the same time, you are gaining pleasure in your everyday fun through being yourself, and vice versa. You're finding the things you love to do, you're focusing on pleasure and play, and this is taking you more into alignment with your sense of self. With that as well, I'd probably also say that halfway through the month, there's going to be more of a shift for you towards focusing on your routine and home life, focusing on your stability, focusing on those you spend time with the most. And that's because we're going to have an energetic shift halfway through the month that makes you more focused on the way you live and how you live and who you live with. And additionally, I would say could potentially that there is going to be some changes in communication for you, how you communicate yourself, who you communicate with, and the way you think about communication on a day-to-day basis. Now, these are all because of different transits that are happening throughout the month of April. So let's dive into what these different transits are. Like I said in the intro, we have a few energies present with Cancer and Pisces working together. That is because there are a few trines happening this month, two major ones that are working with Mars and Cancer and the energies that are present in the sign of Pisces, specifically Venus, the North Node, and Saturn in Pisces. On April 5th, the Moon and Mars in Cancer will form a trine to Saturn, Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, and the North Node in Pisces. And while it peaks on April 5th, we can feel this energy present up to at the start of April, all the way through to roughly the 18th until Mars enters Leo. What this trine really represents is this idea that we can act in alignment with our emotions, simply put, and the action we take in alignment with our emotions, with our need for nurturance, is working hand in hand with our need to grow into empathy, compassion, and spirituality. With Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, and the North Node, and Saturn in the sign of Pisces, all forming together in a little party, what that energy really represents in and of itself, just this Pisces energy, is that our highest growth is towards Pisces energy, compassion, spirituality, empathy, focusing on how things make us feel and how it makes others feel rather than what we do. But with Mercury retrograde here, this adds an extra level of introspection and reflecting on what exactly this means to us, trying to assess the path forward to stepping into this growth. And Venus retrograde here is adding to this, us reflecting on the value of embracing these traits. How valuable is it for me to be compassionate? What does it mean to be compassionate? What is the value of empathy? What is the value of spirituality? Venus has us assessing our values. And Saturn is, while it can be a detrimental planet, so to say, I think is adding an extra layer of discipline for us to actually sit down and think about these things, or at least a little bit of structure to these thoughts to help us think about, okay, how does empathy interact with my actual life? How does this idea of spirituality actually work within our lives? This also could mean with Saturn here that there's a bit of restriction. However, overall, Saturn is feeling lighter energy because of this trine. with Mars forming a trine to this Piscean energy, this means that our growth and actions are working together. This is a very positive transit to have because it's water sign Mars energy. And the reason I say this is so positive is the fact that overall, the North Node being in Pisces is calling us to do more of what feels good. And because Mars, the planet of action, is involved in this could mean that to act in alignment with our hearts, with our emotions, with our need to be gentle becomes much easier. So the whole beginning of this month of April is tainted or painted with this theme of acting in alignment becomes easier. Doing nurturing actions support our growth, and the work we do with our growth and introspection we do with our growth helps us align, take actions in alignment easier. So it's a two-way street. Mars and Cancer supporting Pisces, Pisces energy supporting Cancer. This is a harmonious relationship they have going on. And not only are we going to have the trine between Cancer energy, Mars and Cancer, and all this Pisces energy, but we will also have a grand water trine involving these planets all once again, and the moon in Scorpio. You can look back to roughly February 23rd of 2025 to get some ideas on what exactly may be coming back up for you, because we had a very similar grand water trine on February 23rd. And I will put my card up here, hopefully, where if I remember, where I talked about this grand water trine. On February 23rd, we had a grand water trine between Mars and Cancer, as well as, I believe it was specifically Mercury in Pisces, and Vesta, the asteroid of devotion, in Scorpio. So this is a much more, in a sense, short-lived grand water trine now because the moon is evolved and the moon is involved, to clarify my words there. The moon is involved and the moon moves much faster. So this is a short burst grand water trine, but this also goes hand in hand with the trines we are having between Cancer and Pisces energy in general at the beginning of the month. And so when we have this grand water trine, when the moon's getting involved, it's adding that extra layer of emotional awareness, emotional depth, emotional understanding, and emotional drive to make it so that all our different forms of emotional being are on the same page to act in alignment, grow in alignment, and feel in alignment. This means our heart, our actions, and our growth, our high self, are all on the same page. This is a very positive energy to embrace. You can simply put on or around this day, feel a sense of emotional clarity on what it is you need to do to remain devoted, connected, and aware of your emotions, to act in alignment with your emotions and act in alignment with your highest self. I would definitely recommend during this day during these grand water trines in general, to notice and pay attention to what it is you feel called to grow to, what it is you feel you need to do more of to act in alignment with your emotions, and what natural actions come up during this time. So how exactly will this Pisces Cancer energy play out for you, Pisces? Like I said, you are in the spotlight in this month of April, and that is because of how much energy is present in Pisces. And with the North Node here in general, this is a 18-month long period where you are growing into your sense of self. And this can be a month where you really start to see what kind of changes are going to be taking place in your sense of self. Alongside that, though, with this being Cancer energy, Mars in Cancer trining Pisces energy, this is affecting your 5th house of romance, pleasure, and play. You are able to not only align with your sense of self, but also find that the ways you pursue pleasure, play, and fun are going to positively affect your sense of self, and vice versa. By focusing on your sense of self and by being vibrant in your sense of self, you're finding the ways that you want to pursue pleasure, play, and romance in your life. We also have a lot of energy present in the sign of Pisces throughout the month of April, which means that, simply put, we are all starting to prioritize and focus on what our next step to growth is. Like I said in my March horoscope, there was this theme with the solar eclipse being in Aries that we know, with the North Node currently being in Pisces, that we know we need to grow into more empathy, compassion, spirituality in a certain realm of life over the next 18 months. But we had to wrap up some stuff first with Aries themes. Well, we finally wrapped up those Aries themes, and now we're getting sent more Pisces energy as a way to encourage us to focus on what our next step to growth is. Starting off specifically on April 2nd and 3rd, Venus retrograde conjuncts the North Node in Pisces, which means we are assessing the value of our growth, assessing the value of Pisces energy and how that can help us overall, grow as people. Then on April 7th, Venus retrograde is conjunct Saturn in Pisces, since Saturn and the North Node are quite literally, basically hand in hand with each other this entire month. And so when Venus retrograde is conjunct Saturn in Pisces, this can emphasize the need for discipline to assess our values, to actually sit down and focus on, okay, what do I need? It can also make us feel a bit more restricted potentially in our ability to assess what we value, feeling like there maybe is less that we value in general. And that's something to be patient with. Overall, Saturn does remind us of patience. And then more importantly, on April 7th, Mercury stations direct at 26 degrees of Pisces, which is very, very important. I think roughly, if I was going to remember off the top of my head, Mercury was last at these degrees of Pisces at the end of February, right before it entered Aries on March 3rd of 2025. It entered Aries. So you can look back to that time period. What were you trying to move forward over that period of time? Now you can finally feel that you're making that motion forward once and for all. Mercury direct in Pisces heightens your understanding, your communication, and what you are learning about empathy, compassion, and spirituality in a certain realm of life. Following suit right after, on April 12th, Venus also stations direct at specifically 24 degrees of Pisces. And what this specifically means is, again, that idea and energy of following suit. Now, after reflecting on the values of our growth, reflecting on the values of empathy, compassion, and spirituality in our lives, now we can start implementing these values and acting on these values. This could mean that you feel called to actually spend more time in solitude, or to set boundaries with people who don't prioritize your peace, or maybe even practicing more compassion and unconditional love in your romantic life, especially true for those who are Scorpio suns or rising, since this is your 5th house, and Virgo sun and rising, who this is your 7th house. On April 21st, Saturn will conjunct the true North Node, which means that we may be feeling again some of that restriction towards our highest path to growth. And on April 25th, Venus direct is conjunct Saturn in Pisces. So you can kind of see, as I say over the screen, aka it's a Pisces party. There's a lot happening in Pisces. You can go into detail into it more, but really the major theme here that is important to note is finally feeling motion forward eventually in what it is we need to do for our growth, and really focusing energy on our understanding and movement forward into learning and reflecting on the values of empathy, compassion, and spirituality, if I haven't said it enough. So how will this Pisces energy play out for you, Pisces, sun and rising? This is simply put for you, giving you that sense of self-embodiment. And specifically, if we were going to break it down with Venus being here and Mercury and there being retrogrades and Saturn and the North Node, you are being disciplined about cultivating your sense of self in a way that aligns with your values. You are reflecting on the value of yourself. You're revisiting old versions of yourself to cultivate a new version of yourself. But overall, this much energy in Pisces and forming positive aspects throughout the month to multiple different planets, to me, gives me the indication that you are just thriving in who you are this month. As I also mentioned, we don't just have a lot of water sign energy present this month, though it is definitely very, very strong water energy. We also have some strong Aries and Leo energy. And I'm actually going to go out of chronological order as opposed to how it shows on my little screenshot here, cheat sheet summary. Mars enters Leo on April 18th. And this is very, very big because Mars has been retrograde since, I believe, December 6th. And December 6th to January 6th, that's when it was retrograde in Leo. Mars entered Leo on November 3rd, I believe. And so from November, this is basically what this means, to recap that a little better, is we can be experiencing motion forward and progress that we have been working on and waiting on since November 3rd. This is a long-awaited transit because November 3rd, you started something related to your passions, your courage, how you show up authentically around others, being more bold, being more seen, owning who you are in passionate, loving ways, acting on your passions, acting on the desire to have fun, You have been waiting to act on that. You started something there November 3rd, but then December 6th slowed that all down and made you backtrack. And then it felt like it completely went away from January 6th to February 23rd and so on, when Mars was retrograde and direct now in Cancer. When Mars finally re-enters Leo, you can start to make that progress forward towards owning the authentic self you want to be and doing things that are in alignment with your authentic self. Authenticity is a huge theme of Leo. Leo also brings up huge themes of passion, acting on passion specifically. What does it mean to act on passion to you? And look back to November. What were you starting to act on that was in alignment with your passion, play, and in love in many ways? Unconditional love, arguably. This works very well with Pisces energy. It's passionate love, joyful love. So you can finally be taking action forward there again when Mars goes direct. This is very, very big. It can feel like a huge leap forward, back on track, back on progress. And so I can't give an exact date on when exactly Mars will finish transiting over this ground, so to say. I had it written down somewhere, but I forgot to keep it on my present note to see down here. But overall, I would guess roughly the first month, a month period, for the next month period, roughly from April 18th to let's say May 18th, you can finally finish doing the things that you set out to do starting in November in relevance to action aligned with passion, love, play, and joy. Also, to work backwards on the timeline, Mercury enters Aries on April 16th. This is also very big. We had Mercury enter Aries March 3rd and station retrograde March 15th and transit through backwards through Aries until March 30th, roughly. And so when on April 16th, Mercury enters Aries again, we're making communication progress forward over things that we have had to reassess and recommunicate and rethink in matters related to our independence and assertion and authenticity. So basically, to put that simply, what has been going on in your communication and in communication related to your independence, authenticity, and assertion over the entire month of March. These can be things that you're finally making progress forward once again, communicating specifically things that you've already had to communicate before and finalizing things. I think that's a good way to describe it. Finalizing it to move forward. Also throughout the month, Neptune is in Aries. Neptune is a new development, so to say. It entered Aries on the 30th of March, which means that we are upholding and learning ideals in Aries themes. So this can kind of go hand in hand with Mercury being here. April 12th, Aries has some very high involvement, given that not only is it creating the full moon in Aries, or full moon in Libra, shining a light on Libra, but Chiron's also involved. And more on that when we talk about the full moon in Libra later in the video. April 30th, Venus enters Aries, again, that following suit at the end of the month, bringing and movement forward to our assessment of our values. Venus, gosh, I don't remember off the top of my head. Venus was in Aries in March and did retrograde motion. I honestly don't remember off the top of my head, guys, but you guys know the dates. I know, because you guys, if you're following my channel, you tend to know all these transits going on. You guys usually aren't total newbies. Apologies for the newbies who are here who wanted the information, but April 30th, when Venus enters Aries once again, we can feel motion forward when it comes to assessing the value of our independence. And you may be actually acting on these values of independence more, whether that's in your love life or in your love for life, prioritizing beautiful, harmonious, pleasureful things in your life that bring you independence and authenticity. And then in between there, April 19th, Mars in Leo forms a trine to Neptune and Mercury in Aries at 0 degrees of Aries. So right after Mars enters Leo, since Mercury enters Aries and Mars enters Leo pretty much at the same time, they directly then form a trine together as soon as they do so. And so what this can really mean, it's like this merging trine energy. Mercury and Cancer, or Mercury and Mars in Cancer and Pisces form trines, and then they later follow together to form trines in Leo and Aries. What that even symbolically represents is our communication and our understanding are on the same page as our actions. So we can really feel a lot of clarity around our actions and acting from a place of clarity. And when this specifically happens in Aries and in Leo, this can mean that we are acting and speaking in alignment with our authentic passion and joyful desire. So how exactly will this Aries-Leo energy play out for you, Pisces? This is activating specifically your second house of finances, wealth, and worth, as well as your health habits and routines. And I'm trying to remember what other sign would have had this combination. I'm pretty sure it would have been Aquarius who has this 12th sixth house combination of energies, but for the water trines, because I feel like I've already talked about this before, and it's kind of tripping me out, getting me stumbling, or whatever you want to call it. Point being, for you, Pisces, with this Aries Leo energy shift that happens halfway through the month, you can expect to feel more passionate movement forward, progress in your desires for your finances and security, and the secure stability you give yourself through routines. This is focusing on the material areas of your life, but specifically how you cultivate passion and authenticity within these material things in life. So you can also experience movement forward in your finances, making progress on your self-worth, as well as making progress forward on what kind of routines you want to have, what passions you need to pursue for your health and well-being. Uranus also plays a big role in the month of April, given that Pisces energy, different planets in Pisces will be forming sextiles to this planet Uranus that is in the sign of Taurus. Uranus and Taurus at large brings up themes of, for us all, how or where or what we need to do in order to innovate in matters related to our stable senses of security. It brings us unexpected change, specifically to what is secure and material in our life, to ask ourselves, what does security mean to us and what does self-worth mean to us? And this is accentuated for Aries Sun, Moon, and Rising because this is your second house. But overall, Taurus as an archetype in general has a lot to do with what is stable, both our emotional stability and our physical. And so throughout this month, Uranus in Taurus is involved in a few different sextiles to Pisces energy. And what this represents is that our overall growth energy, our energy of learning compassion, empathy, and spirituality is also going positively hand in hand with the work we've been doing since 2019 with our self-worth, our sense of security, our emotional security, and our physical security. On April 4th, when we already at the beginning of the month have this Pisces Cancer energy trining, forming positive relationship to our emotions, Saturn in Pisces will form a sextile to Uranus in Taurus. And with that in mind, this brings an energy of stability and structure and discipline to our self-worth. The work we are sitting down to do, the focus and determination we are bringing to our growth journey about learning to be more spiritual and set boundaries is going hand in hand and working positively with our finances, our self-worth, and what is considered stable. There's like a little flurry over the screen right here. I know I can see it in the camera. I'm sure you guys can too, and you're going to say something later. I actually had someone say that like that was a spirit. Maybe it is, maybe it's dust. Anyway, this also works other way, contrarily, in the sense that when there is any sort of aspect to Uranus, this means that Uranus is activated to bring change. So it could be possible at the beginning of the month, April 4th, there could be something unexpected shaking up the Taurus area of your life, depending on the house it's in, that shakes up your sense of stability, your sense of comfort, your sense of groundedness. And this goes positively hand in hand with the discipline and structure you need towards your growth journey. Similar themes will rise up once again on April 8th when Venus retrograde in Pisces forms this same sextile to Uranus and Taurus. However, this is more about the values we are assessing in regards. So something unexpected could happen once again to what makes us feel stable emotionally and physically. And this causes us to gain further insight into what it is we value as far as empathy, compassion, and spirituality. It could be in an extreme but not realistic scenario. It could be let's say you're losing some form of physical asset with Uranus and Taurus involved, and it's something you thought you valued, but then it helps you realize that that's not really what gives you a sense of security, and it actually helps you step into more spirituality and unconditional love because you realize that it's not something that makes you feel positive. That's how I see this Pisces Uranus energy working out. And then on April 20th, 25th, the North Node in Pisces is sextiling Uranus and Taurus with Venus now direct. And what that means is that the themes that came up around the 8th could be returning on the 20th, related to your self-worth, your value, the things that are stable. But also this is even more so in alignment with your growth because the North Node is involved. This is pushing you in a positive way towards your growth journey. Overall, I would say because this is a sextile and because this is Pisces energy with the North Node being material gain, I would say this could be a positive shift overall in people's finances or in something that provides them a sense of security. This could be financial positivity. This could be emotional positivity. I think this is a very, very positive expression of Uranus. So how will these Uranus and Taurus transits play out for you, Pisces? This is activating your third house of communication. Hence why I said in the major themes for you that there may be a focus on how you communicate. And that is because Uranus brings unexpected changes to your daily network, your learnings, and your way of communicating yourself. This could be an unexpected change in the people you network with, or unexpected change in the way you perceive your daily interactions. This could be, simply put, feeling almost like I picture the Truman Show, where you're feeling the sense of, why are we so superficial? Or do I really want to have these conversations? There's kind of almost that trippy matrix feeling of what is happening right now for you. And this is for the sake of you encouraging more stability and indulgence, a feeling of I'm enjoying myself in your day-to-day communications, as well as your learnings, your day-to-day learnings, meaning the things like social media, and also in your daily network. And these Uranus and Taurus sextiles form positively to your Pisces energy, which means the shifts that you're making in your communication style is aligning with the changes you want to make in your sense of self, in the way you're growing into your sense of self. And this is going to come into play even more at the end of the month when we have a new moon in Taurus. The full moon in Libra, simply put, as basic themes, brings themes of fruition to our peace, fruition to our diplomacy, fruition to our morality, and fruition to our connections, especially for those who are Aries, and this is their 7th house. Overall, I do think the fact that the South Node has been in Libra plays a very important role in this full moon, since it's tied to the eclipse. So how are we keeping the peace for the sake of peace, but it was really causing inner conflict? And how is it not in alignment with our authenticity? That was a theme from mid-2023 till 2025. And so with this full moon being in Libra, tied to an eclipse that is wrapping up themes related to this North and South Node journey around authenticity, we may feel that we're finally experiencing the fruitions of this is what connection and peace should really mean, under the basis of the changes I've finally initiated in matters related to my independent self, my authentic self, and being more assertive with who I am. So the full moon in Libra brings this fruition to this story. There's also a few other things involved that also accentuate this theme as well, of being tied to Aries energy, which I mentioned in my my Aries section probably. The Aries sun, which creates the full moon, is conjunct Chiron. But the practical advice I'd give to this, given how many different interpretations I'm seeing right now, is that our wounds are involved in this. In order to find that completion, in order to find that connection and harmony that we're wanting to bring to fruition, to release the final themes of all this eclipse energy in Aries, we have to identify that there may still be, or was, wounds in our life associated with this independence, assertion, and authenticity that we've been embracing. So this could be a time to own, in a sense, your wounds, not for the sake of self-pity, but to accept yourself so that you can form true connections. That's what my intuition kind of tells me the interpretation is on this, even though there's a few different things that could play out as well. Again, more on that when I do a video on the full moon in Libra. But also there is a square to Mars involved. And this is a very big theme in a sense, because Mars is involved with a lot of positive trines throughout the month. But also the new moon, which I'll talk about in a minute, is also squaring Mars as well. So there's a square to Mars in both cases. And what that means is that these full moons and new moons are really not a time to take action. And this accentuates even further that the full and new moon this month are in Libra and Taurus. Both these signs are ruled by Venus, which is Mars's counterpart. Mars is action, Venus is receiving. Mars is masculine, Venus is feminine. And so I think this is really an opportunity, an invitation, regardless of the Chiron themes that are showing up, to really own your femininity, which doesn't necessarily mean in appearance. It's about becoming and being in the receptive mode, allowing yourself to soften and maybe not take action. This is a month full of a lot of action, where we're taking aligned action. The full and new moon act as like, ad breaks or commercial breaks to tell us, okay, just soften, relax, and be in a state of receiving And it's very possible something will come out with that. After all, a full moon in Libra overall does mean a fulfillment of luxury, a fulfillment of connection, a fulfillment of harmony, regardless of Chiron being involved. It just means that maybe there are wounds also coming up to be aware of. This could also mean it is the wounded healer. So maybe we are healing wounds in others associated with independence, assertion, authenticity, because you've recently initiated something here. And maybe someone needs that piece of advice. And on the same day, Venus stations direct in the sign of Pisces, I believe at like 26 or 24 degrees of Pisces. And this also means that Venus, which is ruling over this moon, moving direct at the same time means that we are acting, or not acting, but being in alignment. So maybe tapping into that energy of compassion, empathy, and softening. Again, that could be this idea of the wounded healer, maybe healing others or giving yourself that compassion. So how will this full moon in Libra play out for you, Pisces? This is a full moon in your 8th house of shared relationships. And I want to recap the 8th house because every time I talk about it, I get a lot of confusion coming up. And so the 8th house is not only the house of intimacy or sexuality, or even just as inheritance is mentioned, it has specifically to do with any sort of resource that is shared. It is the point we get to in life where we start sharing. So this could be sharing physically, sharing mentally, sharing emotionally, sharing financially. It's really about, in many ways, trust and depth. And so with there being a full moon here in Libra in your 8th house, you may reach a culmination point, a fulfillment and a reward in your intimate relationships and in the ways that you share, maybe finding the kinds of shared relationships that you desire, whether that is having a good connection with someone emotionally or getting to a good agreement with someone financially. There is a fulfillment happening here that you've been waiting for the last 2 years as you have been developing your sense of self-sufficiency. You've been developing this independent sense of self, healing your relationship with independence because Chiron's involved. And now you may be reaping a reward in your intimate relationships to feel that sense of harmonious connection to someone. And finally, the final transit to talk about in April of 2025 is on April 27th, we will have a new moon in the sign of Taurus. Again, Taurus is Venus ruled. So really this means new beginnings associated with what we value. Taurus is also the sign in which Uranus is in. So we have been for the last 5-6 years shifting what it is we value in matters related to our security, comfort, indulgence, and emotional stability. And so this could be a new beginning revolving around these themes. It is just a minor, so to say, new moon. So maybe not necessarily having to see the huge deep meaning here, but that's how I'm personally seeing it. New moon in Taurus as general themes brings new beginnings to our comfort, new beginnings to our security, new beginnings to how we indulge, new beginnings to what feels stable. Taurus is the bull in the bubble, which is the idea of finding their own little pleasant field to be in and just staying there. So maybe this has a theme to do with what is the new bubble you need to form for yourself so that you don't pop, so to say. With that also, this new moon in Taurus forms a square to Mars in Leo, like I talked about with the full moon in Libra. That also squared Mars specifically in Cancer. This again appears with Mars in Leo. And what that represents is while you are finally experiencing motion forward with your passion, play, courage, taking courageous action, this new moon in Taurus is like a commercial break saying, okay, you're doing great on your action. You've done a lot of work this month. You're doing a lot. But now receive and set new intentions based off of what you want to receive. Align with your values. Again, ruled by Venus. Venus is the opposite, the other side of the coin to Mars. Mars is masculine, Venus is feminine. And so with a new moon in a Venus-ruled sign, squaring Mars, it really does accentuate this idea of focusing less on action and more on intention. And I think that is, when we're talking about new moons in general, there is sometimes the do something new approach, and then there is the set new intentions approach. I think this really leans into the set new intentions approach in the sense of send out the signals to the universe for what it is you want to receive and be, and based off of what you value, and let the universe guide you forward. It also then, therefore, is squaring Pluto in Aquarius, and during that, therefore, I mean, Mars is opposing Pluto in Aquarius. So two things happening there. With the new moon squaring Pluto in Aquarius, this means that the new beginnings that we are taking into place that are wanting to be set in stone in our material reality may not go in alignment with the innovative ideas we've been coming up with. Meaning that over the beginning of the year, you may have felt like, okay, I need to change this pattern. I need to be this different person. I need to innovate something in my life. I need to let go of this idea of materialism. I need to be detached. But Taurus is very material. And so the new beginning that you want to initiate may not feel in alignment with that. And given that Mars is opposing Pluto and Aquarius right now, it simply means that there's a push-pull dynamic, I think, between what is the most passionate, mundane thing for us to do versus what is the most spiritual, detached, intellectual growth version of us to do. The most human version of us and the most superhuman are at odds, so to say. And I think Taurus is basically forming as a mediary in a sense, even though it's let's back that up a little bit, actually, to explain this metaphor a little bit better. Whenever we have a square that's at 90 degrees, right? And even an opposition is two other ends of the spectrum. Mars is opposing Pluto and Aquarius. Mars and Leo, Pluto and Aquarius. What that means is that they're at a standoff. They're not seeing eye to eye. They're staring at each other, so they're seeing eye to eye technically, but they're not wanting to meet in the middle. And so we need to have something in that energy that helps us meet in the middle. In a way, how I'm seeing this, the new moon in Taurus is forming as that mediary. It's not necessarily the best mediary because it's squaring. It's not necessarily going to be this diplomatic, harmonious mediary, but it's basically standing in between the standoff saying, enough, I'm done with this. This is just what we're doing. Like a Taurus, like a stubborn bull really would be. So the new moon in Taurus is trying to be this mediary for this energy of passion versus innovation, fun versus humanity, almost, so to say, or even simply put, just follow your joy versus follow your growth is actually really how I would describe that. Following joy versus following growth. The new moon in Taurus helps us meet in the middle and say, I need to just initiate something new in alignment with my values that I've been changing, growing, and innovating. And I just need to align with the intention. Also, there is a sextile between Uranus and the North Node and Venus, still activated throughout this period, which means Venus is involved in a positive aspect to Uranus in the same sign. So focusing on, if I can really explain the connection here, Uranus rules over Aquarius. Pluto's in Aquarius in a negative aspect, but Uranus is in a positive aspect with this new moon, and Venus, the ruler of Taurus, is involved positively in this new moon. And the North Node is also involved positively. The North Node being our next highest path to growth. So it may even in a sense feel like there's an opposition, opposing views going on somewhere in your life, but it's not to let it take your attention. It's distraction almost, it seems. Because the sextile between Uranus and then the North Node in Venus activated during the same time and in the same sign and with the planetary ruler really does indicate to me that there's this focus on letting change come to you in alignment with your values and letting the universe present to you what it is you should or do truly value at your core and think differently potentially. The Taurus and Aquarius and Leo are all fixed signs, last I checked. And so there's maybe this fixed mentality that is being encouraged to let go of. Maybe the best way to overcome this maybe challenging energy of fixed point of views is to let go of fixed point of views and just focus on what you value and change your way of thinking. That is encouraged because Uranus is having a positive aspect during the same time of this new moon. So how will this new moon in Taurus affect you, Pisces? This is again activating your third house, which brings back the themes that have been coming up throughout the month with the Uranus and Taurus sextiles. So all those unexpected changes and different ways of thinking to your daily communication and your daily network are now coming back to be initiating something new here. Maybe you want to surround yourself with a different network. Maybe you want to converse differently with your network. Maybe you want to change how you show up on social media. Maybe you want to show up more in general on social media and be more of an influencer or something. The new moon in Pisces is a time for you to initiate a change in the way that you communicate on a day-to-day basis and who you communicate with on a day-to-day basis, to share your knowledge and share your knowledge from a place of stability and self-worth. And while there is a square going on with both the full and the new moon, which indicate a time to not take action, overall you can ground into your sense of self and the way you want to communicate yourself for clarity during this new moon, because that Uranus sextile is still activated to Pisces energy, which is your centering point, even though there is this opposition between Mars and Pluto during this time. Center into who you want to be and how you want to communicate yourself for positive results during this new moon in Taurus. So with that long horoscope in mind, what would I recommend for you, Pisces, in the month of April of 2025, regardless of whether Pisces is your sun, moon, rising, or something else? First and foremost, I'd say I'd really cultivate time for your independence and focusing your independent time on pursuing pleasures, creativity, and joy. What is fun for you? Spend time on your own doing what is fun for you, because this can be highly emotionally rewarding, especially in the first half of the month. Prioritize pleasure, play, romance. I will say that because it's your 5th house, you could be technically going on some dates, and that could be really positive for you. But overall, combining this with 1st house energy, I'm guessing that this is more of a call for Pisces or Pisceans to focus on their creativity, focus on their passions, focus on their personal expression. That can be very rewarding in the first half of the month. So I'd focus on that. Secondly, I would take the second half of the month when we have that Aries Leo energy shift into play. I would maybe focus more on your stability and your routines, specifically on what kind of schedules do you have and how do your finances serve this? What would you do if you felt worthy? And how would your day look if you felt that you were going to pursue passion? Focus on cultivating your passion and authenticity in your day-to-day life, as well as in your self-worth. Focus on your stable things, your material things, your schedules, your routines, your calendar, your budget, your habit tracker. Focus on those material things in the second half of the month, potentially. And finally, throughout the month, I'd say an overall theme is focusing also on what kind of communication style feels authentic to you for your self-worth. Who do you like surrounding yourself with? That might be something that comes into your head throughout the month, with there being these Uranus and Taurus sextiles in your 3rd house. So observe what kind of communication makes you feel good. Observe what kind of daily network makes you feel good. And just journal these things out. Observe what conversations feel best to you. Observe what things you say in conversation that feel best to you. Observe who you feel best talking to, and observe maybe what the ideal network would be like potentially. Script out your ideal potentially with that. So Pisces, let me know in the comments below, did you enjoy this horoscope? I did bring back the horoscopes once again for the month of April after hearing positive feedback that you guys appreciated these other horoscopes for March. So they're back, they're here to stay, but I would love to always hear your feedback on, was this too long, too short, too detailed, not detailed enough? What would you prefer? What would you like to hear about more? And did this horoscope resonate for you? Are you ready for the month of April, which is going to be so positive for you and all the signs, truly? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to dive deeper into your personalized birth chart and how exactly the month of April will play out for you, book a reading down below, where in 1 hour we can dive deep into any and everything. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for more videos breaking down the stars and more. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, my name's Isabelle, and from my heart to yours, namaste.